Okie dokie, I am on here right now, just kind of messing around with some stuff, seeing how well it works while I do the editings. So, as you can see, I'm actually outside. Sometimes it's a lot quieter out here than it is inside to do the work. Plus, I'm currently staying down under, and the weather is generally a lot better than it is in Ohio. So it's a bit easier. I feel like this is 90% of what you do as a podcaster is or editor is just wait. So I'm doing some very simple bass editing right now.
Or his scar is still visible. But you have to see it also in a context
That sounds so bad.
of of rough behavior. Not very long ago, I was in Spain, where my brother lived for quite a while, for a family reunion and to a fish restaurant. And I was studying the menu. He put his arm around my shoulder, and we sat there and studied the menu. And all of a sudden, there was something biting on my back, and it smelled like smoke. And I realized that with his cigarette lighter, he had set my shirt on fire. And we laughed so hard. And nobody at the table understood that this was a brotherly, rough sort of joke. And of course, we cooled my back with some prosecco, and somebody gave me his T-shirt, which I wore for the rest of.
Hmm. You know, I don't think you guys can see menus or like when I let's see here. I'm pulling up. Oh, that's clever. Huh, that kind of works out for me. Yeah, you can't actually see what I'm selecting. So in a weird way, that kind of lets me keep some of the secrets, I guess. Although I don't think it would be too difficult to see or to be able to tell what some of the stuff was. I was just trying to get rid of some of that high pitched sibilance that was coming in. Feel free to jump in the chat if you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever. Again, I am just kind of experimenting with this. I'm probably not going to have the whole episode edited up here. I'm just gonna have a play and go back and look at how everything worked and recorded and all that kind of stuff. So
I think
okay, so this is gonna give me a really
I think we are all after some sort of truth. It's innate. It's our nature. We. I know everybody wants and tries to find some truth, and we shouldn't discuss it in detail. It's more discussed in the book. And I finished yet another book right after my memoirs. It's called The Future of Truth, which will be released next spring. And I go deeper into those questions. But in brief, I try to locate. We know it's somewhere out there, like
okay. Got rid of some of that. Actually, hold on. What?
I'm a writer who coincidentally also makes films. And I kept saying, seriously, I kept saying it preaching to deaf ears. My writing will outlive my films. Yes, I'm convinced, because and it's not so much the content. When you look at my memoirs, yes, there's events and certain things, but the real quality of it, and the real quality of, let's say, conquest of the useless, is the caliber of prose. And it has been informed, my writing, my poetry has been informed through the enormous amount of physical presence in unusual situations. Like you do
Yeah,
not
I'm
normally
noticing
move a
you
ship
you
over
zoom
a
in a little
mountain,
bit.
320 tons. That's unusual, and my peers in filmmaking normally do not do that. They do not hypnotize an entire cast for the sake of creating.
I feel like that's nicer. I gotta probably recompress things a little bit, but I think that gets me just a little bit closer to what I want. I'm testing out my mute function now. Boom, boom. Does not work. I have check, check, 1, 2. Nope, does not work. I have a that works. I have a Stream Deck, so I'm just kind of playing with it now to see how it works. But the apparently the mute function that I have set up is not accurate. So okay, moving on to the next file. Okay.
Which utterly failed to impress me. Is your admiration and respect for the women in your life. There are three things that you say. You say, my mother was as brave a woman as any I have ever known. You also say that all the women in your life, you say the book isn't about them, but they were all independent, strong, beautiful, and smart. Without them, I would have been just a shadow of myself. And of Julianne.
Okay, quality on this one's considerably better, so I don't think I'm gonna have to
Anything at all. The burden of dreams.
cue it just a
those elements through filmmaking. Again, you talk in the book about a moment in the creation of Fitzcarraldo.
Okay.
Doors, like breaking up toilets, tearing things apart like a whirling dervish. And you write that when you were on set of movies with him, he would be explosive, often without any real...
I'm going to do that again. You can't see it, but what I'm doing right now is just compressing the audio a little bit, just to kind of level it out. I don't like to level it a ton with spoken word stuff because it ends up sounding like a car commercial from like a radio car commercial from like the 90s. So I like people speak loud, soft, like they have a natural kind of flow, and generally it's loud, soft as you go through the sentence. It generally looks like somewhat like a triangle, sideways. See if I can see. You can see he's loud, soft as he goes. And I like to preserve that because it's natural. It's what we expect. So what I'm doing now is, well, I'm batch processing, so I'm making sure everything's the same sample size and all that kind of stuff before I drop into the multi-track. But and then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to kind of do a very rough mix on the interview itself, the question answers, that kind of stuff. Make sure everything lines up. Make sure nobody's saying anything, coughing in the middle of it, that kind of stuff. So this usually takes about the longest.
Okay. Well, but you'll come and... Thank you very much, Werner. Lovely to see you again. A terrific...
Okay, so see, I'm missing something here. So I just have to guess and hope that this is the right spot. Luckily, these tend to line up pretty easily. So if I get the first one...
I have an endless litany. Let's cut it short here.
In terms of your own experience of cinema...
Because civilization was...
You've also said giving you that anarchy.
I think so.
Okay, cool. Yep. We're making cohesive sense. And I'm sure there are easier ways to do this with filters and stuff, but
lovely to see you again. A terrific read, which I... And just, ask you to entirety is a mistake.
Well,
I like to do it. Sorry, I lose myself in my work here. I like to do it by hand still because it gives me a chance to listen to things and kind of preview edit, but then make sure that what is getting cut out is what I want to get cut out. I think I just accidentally cut the whole thing out. There we go. And it's a lot easier to do.
Well, it sounds a little bit provocative, and it should be like that. But there's a serious background to it. If we look at the 20th century, we had a little bit provocative, and it should be like that. But there's a serious background to it. If we look at the 20th, I have an endless litany. Let's cut it short here.
In terms of your own experience of cinema, you say in the book, and Can you remember why you were unimpressed?
I do remember one film in particular. It was a very lousy job. It was apparently staged with lousy job. It was apparently staged with extras from River.
Yeah.
They were much better. They were convincing. But the medium film, that I did not even know that cinema existed. I did not know until I was 11. It sounds strange. Was.
You've also said that one of your main memories, we had a magnificent time, especially as there were hardly any fathers anywhere in the village. So everything was in the giving you that anarchy.
I think so, because
I have a feeling I'm not going to like the breaths.
Understand what we are trying to tell you,
I just don't
parents.
You also recount in the book. You also recount in the book, Werner, a story in construction.
Sure, it's a great consequence. Yes. My brother we were in a fight over something trivial, but we had violent fights. It happens.
I cut out that kind of stuff. The yes, and right, and that kind of stuff. A lot of times I cut that out because it doesn't add anything to the interview generally. It just kind of lets you know that the other person's still there, which
set my shirt on fire, and we laughed so hard. And nobody at the table understood that this was all the time.
The reason that story is remarkable, Werner, is that I have known you.
Okay, so he probably did speak over him a little bit. So I'm just gonna, without moving the rest of it, in case that's still in time, I'm just gonna a little bit.
Time.
The reason that story is remarkable, Werner, is that I have known you over many years now, and I've interviewed you in different circumstances, some more relaxed than others. I don't think I have ever seen you get flustered. In fact, I don't think I've ever that one of the things that you are very, very good at is not raising, not your hackles don't get raised.
Right. It's discipline. And at that
get raised.
Right.
Okay, now I'm going to start to really pay attention to see how much it might have potentially shifted because of, I don't know how these recorded, so I don't think they're timed up perfectly.
No fingers left. They're all bitten
you
away.
You chewed them off in a Siberian death camp.
Gulag, yes. And that ass bad guy. And I have no fingers left. They're all bitten away.
You chewed them off in a Siberian death camp.
Away and
you chewed them off in a Siberian death camp.
Away and
you chewed them off in a Siberian death camp.
Gulag, yes. And I have one blind eye. I only have my voice.
Chewed them off in a Siberian death camp.
Gulag, one
death camp.
Gulag, yes. And I have one blind eye. I only have my voice, a quiet voice, and I spread terror day to the next.
It's fascinating because you describe that as being, brotherly life. There are three things that you say. You say, my brother... All
right, I'm going to try this and shift this because it looks like...
There are three things that you say. You say, I have ever known.
Yes.
You also say that all the women in your life, you say the book isn't about them, but they were all independent, strong, beautiful. Inspiration for the women in your life has instilled itself into your character.
Yes, and in a way it has given me a lot of confidence and Onassis.
And what about the contradictions between filmmaking and the family?
You can't really. My child, my firstborn boy was...
have been more complicated.
Yeah.
Been more complicated.
Yeah. Yes, it has. There was always some sort of films. And I kept saying, seriously, I kept saying it, preaching to deaf my films.
Do you think that's true, Werner?
Yes, I'm convinced because the films.
Do you think that's true, Werner?
Yes, I'm convinced because and it's not so much that.
No.
They do not hypnotize an entire cast for the sake of creating Chatwin or
Yes.
the German poet Hölderlin early. And you look puzzled. You're looking puzzled. And I have a very simple way to explain it or formula. You're looking puzzled. And I have a very...
I say, it's obvious these guys were wearing headphones or something, and it is such a lifesaver. Because like these little things right here, if they weren't wearing headphones, this would both show up. And because it would show up on both files, I'm pointing at it, that's not helpful, on this file and this file. And because they would be out of tune or out of sync, because they're naturally timed differently and that kind of stuff, it would have been just absolute garbage. But because they're on separate files...
And you look puzzled. You're looking puzzled. And I have a very simple way...
Frustration to...
And you look puzzled. You're looking puzzled. And I have a very simple way to explain it or formula. It sounds like a formula. And writing is home.
Okay.
And it's not a contradiction.
Okay, so I'm gonna...
Okay.
And it's not a...
Okay.
And it's not a contradiction.
I suppose the reason I have whatever look I have on my face, Werner, is because, you know, I grew up with the cinema, and cinema is my first love as opposed to reading. They mean so much to me.
Thank you for saying that. Because...
fruition.
No, I do not spend any sleep from 180 miles an hour and that I have not crashed against a concrete wall is a mystery to me, because I was very, very certain I would not see my 18th. Gave up with my predictions, and I'm still around. So it was totally wrong.
On the subject of getting down on your knees and will. So when you were young, religion was important to you. Now, I know that has changed, but is that zeal still there?
I think so, yes. And you shouldn't only mention...
So when you were young, religion was important to you. Now, I know that has changed, but is that zeal still there?
I think so, yes. And you shouldn't only mention Catholicism or deep sense for something sublime, something beyond human existence. It was also at the same time within a few fairly well documented.
And did all those discussions and those investigations the hallmark of your filmmaking?
I think we are all after some sort of truth. It's a book of books. No, it is not. It doesn't illuminate us. And I do the briefest of all descriptions. What I do is 48 hours.
Well, Werner, I look forward to talking to you about truth when the new book comes out, and I hope that we can do this again. Relationship with Kinski, about whom obviously you have written extensively before. You detail how when you first knew him, he was given to crashing together. How did that happen? Work together.
Sure.
How did that happen?
It's a very long story. I made a 1.5 hour film. Our relationship, my best fiend. You can see more in detail. 1.5 hour film. Our relationship, my best fiend. You can see more in detail. I think a 1.5 hour film. Our relationship, my best fiend. You can see more in detail. I think the essence of all this is I knew that there was no one to meet him. We have to finish that one. And so it's It's a very, very difficult question for me how I survived all this, but I always fortified myself with enough philosophy to take what I still have.
Okay. So when you said to him, and he knew that you were.
He knew.
Do you think there's a connection? You weren't joking.
He knew.
Do you think there's a connection, Werner, between Kinski and Timothy Treadwell? Because to people like Kinski.
I'm going to end up cutting that anyway. Not a big deal.
Films on death row, plane crash in the jungle, and by coincidence, you normally see.
When we were
what the heck?
Modern mythology, at least from my point of view, which is that I was interviewing you and you were shot at, by, we don't know who it was local folklore. And I love that phrase. Do you want to, what did you mean by that?
Well, Los Angeles, and I love the United States, although and feelings, but I have even more ambivalent feelings about my own country. The readers to munch on. I do not explain everything, and we shouldn't explain it any further here as well.
Schlondorf.
Yeah.
What was it about Volker, and why were filmmakers at the time?
Well, there's always been respect with everyone, and like Wim Wenders, and some friendship, but not to such a depth with, like personally with.
Loyalty is very important to you, isn't it?
Yes, yes. It's a.
Somehow this
relations and
forever, but it really actually
stayed up and hung up, and
it's kind of tedious, but I
and it military
no,
terms,
sure.
But qualities.
The interview is kind of ahead of time.
Sounds like a soldier.
It's interesting as well because you've talked, and you said because the poet must not. Those encounters with bad art taught you things.
That's a difficult. Not on air anymore. But
damn, I've missed it.
Traveling. Yes. But
damn, I've missed it.
Yes. Being experienced everyone else. I travel when there's some input, and it informs my worldview.
Okay, I have some questions here from people who've been listening. Are you okay if I run some of them past you?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so here's one that says, you said that the first films you saw left you unimpressed.
Well, that's a mighty big. Well, questions.
It is.
And my own very first films like Heracles and so, the 50s by Satyajit Ray, the Apu trilogy. And it's about a boy growing up in a village, mediocre at best.
Okay. I feel like I ought to say, read this. Here is another question. You say that your writing will outlive your film, but do you see the parallels with how you write and how you take vision?
I think it's a different expression, although the worldview gives a cohesion to films and writing it down.
This is a chapter.
No, I think it's fine that I made that film, and keep it like that.
On the subject of the new memoir, the title of your
question, yes, in a way, yes, because I grew up so isolated and not knowing the world at all, or only a tiny sector very close to them.
I want to ask you something about the very what's happening.
Yes, yes, it's coming in much
Yes.
more robust. Or microbes were after us,
Okay.
or even
Here at the end.
the crocodile in the Nile
I mean, I've been editing this
swamps.
podcast for a while.
Yes,
Wow,
they are
and
good at,
they usually
and they will
ask at the end to do like audience Q&A.
sentence.
And
We're getting towards the
I've never once had anybody, when somebody said, "Do you mind if we ask these questions?" say, "Yeah, I kind of do mind. I gotta go."
For sentence.
I'd like to see that.
We're getting towards the end of our time, Vern. Let me just ask you a couple.
Yes.
We have a couple more questions here. You've mentioned an interest in AI. What are you worried about the possibilities?
Both. Let's speak of both. Let's speak of the glorious possibilities first. Artificial intelligence will never write a book as good as mine. It will never make a film as good as mine. Period.
This is one last question here. I'd love to know a few of the books that have particularly captured. Can you give us some examples?
Yes. I started as an antithesis to the nonsense of film school documents. Without these massive forgeries, no, Fitzcarraldo would never have been made without massive forgery, because military blocked his assassination.
Okay.
It's a fantastic, fantastic crime book, and I will not regret it.
Well, thank you, Werner. That sounds like a solid recommendation. I want to ask you a very, very last question.
Painters, musicians, filmmakers, writers, read the Peregrine. You will not.
Are you happy?
I have never been after happiness, and you even see it in the American concept of happiness as a central quest of just like that.
It's a lovely.
We are coming up here pretty quickly.
Always a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Talking to you, it's really also wonderful to you. And we were exactly on time.
Okay, so in theory, we have a full interview here. Now I'm going to go ahead and save everything. I've been streaming. Oh, 32 minutes-ish. Got company from a cat. So just to kind of go over some of the stuff I did, I took each one of the files for the regular interview. In this little file over here, this track 1, that's the intro, so that's a different thing. And I just some real light mixing on them, just to kind of get the levels up and remove some background noise and just kind of make them clear. And then compressed everything, brought it up so it would be at a good level. And then went through here and all these little bits and pieces are parts I removed from the interview where they're not talking. So I do that because it just makes it a heck of a lot cleaner when I go to mix it down. I don't have to mess with anything, and it gives me kind of an idea of where the interview is going to go, which is really helpful. So it's almost like a really rough chop before I mix it down. So what I'm going to do now is, and I do this just to give myself a little bit more room. I probably don't need to. But I'm always, I don't know, I've done that. Started with compression back in the day. In radio, we would do a lot of this kind of stuff. So I just kind of kept doing it. Okay, so here it is. Very basic version of the interview. So I'm going to bring it up to here. That felt really good. I don't know if you could hear that, but I just cracked everything. And now I'm doing some light filtering and stuff. All right, so I'm in South Australia right now, and I have this safety. What is it called? Alert SA, and it's for fires, and this is not something I'm used to. I get these alerts all day of fires that are just around. Like here, I know this is not relevant at all, but I just got one. So, all right. So here's my little. You can see the little blue circles, my watch zone, and these are just fires that happen. Like some of them are controlled burn off, so it's actually by firefighters and stuff. But like, look at that. It's just, and it's not even cold. Oh my gosh, there's more. Okay, they're all over the state. It's not. It's not. I mean, it's not. Sorry, it's cold right now. It's not even warm. It's like 65 out, and it's been that way for the last couple of days. And I think the highest is going to get this week is like 72. So we're not in the summer part. And yep, stuff just seems to be catching fire. It's absolutely bizarre to me. So here is our basic edited file. You could, in theory, just slap some music on this, do an intro, whatever, and you'd have basically an episode of the podcast, and it probably would sound pretty good. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut out some of the lip smacking and the uhs and the ums, and if there's any sort of start stops, anything like that, just to clean it up, and like right here.
Thank you.
Nope. And then there's some directives from my client about where to go in the wrong direction, about where to make some edits and stuff like that, stuff that they like to have done with their style. But my natural style is to keep things fairly organic sounding. People will occasionally say, they will occasionally take a breath. I've seen a lot of podcasts or listened to a lot of podcasts now where they condense everything. And I've noticed that one of the things they do in that is they take out all the breaths. And so you're listening to something for 15, 20 minutes and you're realizing that the person's never breathed. And it's really jarring. When you're editing or producing spoken word content like that, it's important for you to take those little breaks because that's where people kind of catch up and kind of catch the information. Whereas if you never take a break, it just starts going in one ear and out the other because it gets taxing to continually listen to someone just talk and talk and talk with literally no little gaps in the conversation or breaths or anything like that. It's like a run-on sentence that goes on for a half an hour. It's really challenging to listen to. So if you're recording your own or editing your own podcast, like leave the breaks in. Think of it like a piece of music. There are silences. Let those silences play and let them be there. It's natural. That's how we speak. And everybody has their own individual kind of style of where they put the gaps. Christopher Walken, huge example. It's iconic. So that's unique to you. So keep it in there, and it'll sound a lot better than just cutting everything out. Okay, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up for now. Again, this was just a test, so I'm just kind of seeing how it goes. Thanks for watching, and remember to check me out at that podcast editor guy on TikTok, Instagram, and of course YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that crap.